We interrupt this dumb conversation on CNN to bring you a segment of the day. Welcome on, Nick. I wanted to bring you on today. For those of you who don't know, this is Nick Meyer, talented voiceover artist and content creator. Your content's mostly on TikTok, right?
Yeah, TikTok and Instagram. I've been streaming on Twitch since like 2020, off and on. Started content back in 22. But yeah, on camera, voiceover, actor, whole nine.
I reached out to you after I saw a tweet of yours go pretty viral, I would say. Let's see. On the 11th, you said, getting dropped by my agency for refusing an AI voice model job. Fun time. Could you kind of, give us the background on this? Because this is something that myself and a lot of our peers have been warning about, that AI is, going to be displacing labor, though a lot of people would wrongfully, I'd say, describe your line of work or my line of work as not labor. This is still, a essential part of labor.
Oh, absolutely. So just to give a rundown on what happened, I've been signed with this set agent. It was primarily a commercial agent at first, on-camera commercial, and around 6 months into our contract, they took over as my voiceover representation. And I had my fair share of interesting interactions with them. I've been in the industry since I was 16. I moved here from Detroit when I was 16 and have been a part of it since then. And I've had my fair share of fucking crazy agents. I won't lie. I had my manager at 18 sit me down and go, "So I signed a lot of porn stars." I said, "Okay." And he's like, "Listen, I know this is a question I didn't know how to ask you. How big is it?" And I'm
Jesus
sitting there,
Christ.
18, shaved-faced, Midwestern boy. I was, "How big is what, sir?" And he responds, "Well, your penis." You see, a lot of the actresses I've been working with have been doing a lot of stepson stuff, and I think you have the look, so we don't have to talk about this ever again, but how big is it? So I've had shit like that happen, you know what I'm saying? And so I thought I'd seen it all. I've been injured on sets, I've been blasted by casting directors and everything under the sun. So going back to what happened, my agency contacted me with an audition. And typically, part of the reason why I was a super big fan, most auditions come from a couple of places. So Casting Networks is one of the websites, Actors Access is one of the websites, and there's a couple others like Backstage, but those are less, I would say, exclusive. They're pretty easy to access for the average person. And so every audition they had gotten me was from there, which for context, all of those auditions, 95% of them are open call. So, well, not open call. So they'll be open listings. So you can just apply yourself and they'll ask for an audition. So they were essentially doing something I could do if I took 20 minutes out of my day every day to apply for everything new. I received one of the very first independent auditions from them, which meant that they had some sort of business relationship with the company that was casting. So typically, the exclusivity that is provided by an agent is from the ability to have contacts with those casting directors, because HBO Max, Apple TV, Netflix, they're not typically casting from those open call websites. They're casting from a general open network of their clients, their agency clients. So this was the first time that I saw that they were they were putting my name out there, putting their feet on the ground. And I open up the audition and just to quote the casting call itself from the thing from the tweet you pulled up. Casting call: one of our clients, a well-known tech company, is casting for a new text-to-speech, in parentheses, TTS, synthesized voice machine learning, non-union project. The intended usage will be to create synthesized voices as a part of a public-facing tech product in a voice assistant capacity. There will be as many as 100 talent cast for this project. So I'm not a fucking idiot. So when I read this, I was like, so AI, obviously, because the AI, for those that don't know, is obviously a huge red flag in the entertainment industry, obviously, but especially for voice actors, when you put speech and machine learning next to each other, alarms go off. But they avoided using the phrase AI because they knew what would happen. Right. So I got this audition and I was like, man, this is fucking AI. So I get on the phone with my buddy Annalisa. She's the voice. She's in Honkai Star Rail and Firefly
shit.
and everything like that. Yeah, she's the voice of Firefly, I think is her name. But she's on Netflix, does a lot of cartoons, and then their friend Val is in Overwatch and stuff. She also hopped in and was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, I'm not insane. This is AI and this is terrible, and I should punch my agents in the face. And they're like, yeah. So I respond to the audition, I think, in the most professional manner possible, because I don't want to do it. And I'll tell you, before I get into that, the compensation, by the way, was listed as $100,000.
Yeah, big payday for, you know.
Which is, voice actors get pennies. Right. Of the entertainment industry, the most underpaid people are extras and voice actors.
Right.
Because voice actors, there are fewer jobs. It's a more exclusive circle of individuals that all work. So it's very hard to make anywhere close to that in a year, let alone 3 years as a voice actor.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with Scott McNeil, voice of the original Piccolo and like Waspinator, Wolverine, legend.
Yeah.
This was like 10, 12 years ago. I had this conversation with him at a small convention in Baton Rouge. And what they do to supplement their income for a lot of like anime cartoon voice actors is the convention circuit, you know, selling autographs and posters and appearances, like those speaking fees. Like that's where that supplemental income is.
Yes. I mean, in general, the second most important agent for a voice actor after a talent agent is a convention agent, because those signings that you're doing, the speeches that you're giving, the panels you're doing, that is your income. That is the only thing that you get that is semi-permanent, that is semi-stable. Because voice acting, even for the greats, even for the biggest names you know of in voice acting, they are still pounding the fucking pavement.
Yep.
And that is a labor of love, far more than a labor of income. And so, obviously, if you throw in the fact that they're throwing down $100,000, right? They know that they're waving cash in front of the faces of these actors, knowing that they'll sell their fucking soul. So after I did some research on the project name was like Starship or something like that. I found an AI company called Topaz Labs, and they primarily worked in the video development, I would say upscaling. So video upscaling. So you'd take a video from 1950, you'd be able to make the quality look a little better. That's their main program. So it set off bells for me because currently the biggest setback for AI, the biggest difficulty they have is the voices don't fucking sound right every time, dude.
Right.
So you could make all of those shitty AI movies you see. The reason there's no audio is because they cannot get the voices right. And so what it immediately rang to me, how it rang to me was they want to cast 100 actors to sit there and use the regular speaking voice into a mic doing call and response so they can train this model to absolutely make voice actors obsolete. And it's said to use a synthesized voice to make, what is it called? A personal assistant capacity. So even if I'm fucking wrong about those assumptions and on that research, even using it as a voice assistant model, I'll tell a quick anecdotal story before I continue about Siri. So the voice of Siri signed a 10-year NDA and got paid around $10,000. Siri is in millions, tens of millions of Apple products. Siri is used globally. And that woman was paid, I think I can look up the actual number, but it was between 10 and 20K. And she could not speak about it for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, it's an early investment. It's a cheap, the thing you're talking about, this gig, 100 people, this is $1 million investment that would be in tens of millions of devices or programs, whatever it is.
And that's the thing is, and ironically, I'm sitting here talking about Siri, I'm talking about 100K. And ultimately what I decided was, there is no monetary value on your likeness. And I will say that to the common person. There should not be a monetary value on your likeness. I understand, because I know that $100,000 is life-changing money, and it is for me. It's not for life-changing money for me. But the idea that you would only be compensated for one singular time for usage in perpetuity is insane. So going back to the actual email chain, I sent a response and I said very clearly, I don't want to do this. I don't want to use my voice to train a machine learning model. This is something I'm not comfortable with, and exactly what the voice actor strikes were for.
Right.
So SAG voice actors have been striking for the last 3 years off and on because of this very issue.
Yeah. Are you with SAG or?
No, I'm not. I never actually fully signed up because a lot of my income was coming from non-union projects back when I was 19, 20, 21.
I gotcha.
So this is where it went from like, oh, what a normal day in the office. I'm just telling them I don't want to do this job, to like, what the fuck? Because they respond with, you do realize it's about 100K. Your voice wouldn't even be distinguishable. Blah 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 blah. If you're turning down a high 5-figure to low 6-figure job, then you are probably with the wrong agency. So, and this was a response 2 minutes later. It's not listed in the pictures because I redacted this information, but it was 2 minutes between me saying no and them sending that email. 2 minutes.
Wow. Okay,
and
so it struck a nerve.
Yeah, it didn't. It hit him in the fucking frontal cortex, man. And then the second, I get another email 1 minute after that one. So that meant that both of the agents in the agency were writing the email at the same time. I get another email at the exact same moment saying, if for a buyout of high 5 figures, low 6 figures, you are willing to sell your voice, which is not like your face or your voice with your name attached to it, does not impinge on your earning potential in any way, nor did you call to have a discussion to hear my logic or point of view. Logic and reasoning, typical. Anyway, then I'm the wrong agent for you, and you should seek another agent. We should part ways amicably. And then this is where it got even funnier. They said, dude, you're a smart guy. Wrong, No, you're a smart guy. But you are still a smart young guy, and you truly have to learn to pick your battles. I have been nothing but patient since I signed you, and you've produced 0 materials. Blah, all of that company time. They essentially go on to say that I've been a bad client by not submitting materials like headshots and everything, which is incredible because this isn't a brag. It's more of a conversation. If you have a client that has 230,000 followers on Instagram, however many followers on TikTok, a wonderful voice acting reel, good headshot. If you can't get them an audition, that is not like, I hate to say it, I've been doing this a long time. I know when someone has the accolades / the materials to get cast, or at least auditions.
You're literally making like promo materials regularly.
Yes, I have a very lucrative contract with a voice acting company, with a storytelling company. So obviously there's something wrong with them, not with me, but that's besides the point. They respond this way, and I will say, I did an angry pace where you're just pacing around the house, just looking, just like, what the fuck, man? Because again, dude, this fucking guy. I was just completely thrown off by the response. But either way, I took that information and I tried my best to stay as professional as possible. And I just said I'm very well researched in the space of AI as I was part of the strikes. Feeding any amount of myself into an AI model is against my morals. While I may not be recognizable or I may have plausible deniability, the last thing I'll do is sacrifice my moral standing for a paycheck. There are some battles that are easier fought by sitting out. And then I agreed that we should part ways, and I separated myself from the agency. So in their conversation, they were burying the lead that there was this idea that if I caved and I took the audition, they would still keep me as a client. And that was their biggest crime, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Dying on the hill of AI, sure, shitty, awful, don't like it. But where they failed as an agent, where they stopped doing their job, because getting money, making money for themselves as well as their client is their job. So wanting to make me $100,000 and them their 10% commission, that's their job. But where they stopped doing it correct, or stopped doing their job, was when they threatened me. They put me in a position of, I will drop you if you don't do this job.
Right.
So after pretty extensive, combing through the emails a couple more times, and I spoke to Scott. I forgot his last name, but he's the lawyer that represents a lot of people in NAVA, which is the National Association of Voice Actors. And I spoke to him yesterday, and after a couple of times of going through the information, he goes, "Oh, you booked this job." Or I say, "It seems like I booked this job." So based on the verbiage of the email, there are times when you'll get a casting notice for a job that you've already booked, but you don't know, or you'll be pinned for it, which means they have their eyes on you specifically. Their verbiage was not, you turned down an audition for 5 to 6 figures. It was, you turned down 6 figures. So I am under the assumption, because they had sent an NDA, that had I signed the NDA, submitted whatever they wanted for the audition, I would have booked the role immediately. So there's, because when a casting company, just for clarification, when an agency and a casting company have an agreement on a person, there are times when they'll still go through the steps, go through the motions, still call for an audition, still have them come in, and they'll just offer them a job on the spot. So they were just, to me, it seems as though they were just doing the motions. Here's your casting notice, sign this NDA, and I more than likely would have booked it. Because why the fuck else would 2 50-year-old men crash out over this over a possibility?
They had the built-in expectation that you were going to accept this. The fact that they used "you're a young guy" is very telling that this offer they probably felt was too big for you to refuse.
Yeah.
The power dynamic there, very apparent.
Yeah, and that I'm gonna say, with this space, with people in general, with the content creator space, I don't really hop into the male power dynamic bucket, where everyone's power stancing and throwing their egos around. And so, especially not from somebody who works for me, because that's what agents and managers do. They aren't your boss. They work for you. And I'm not an egotistical asshole who's going to look down on people who work for me. I'm deeply appreciative and deeply loyal to the people who I work with and who work for me. So when they spoke to me like this and said, you're a young guy, you're a smart guy, I was like, okay, you can shove that $100,000 so far up your ass that you can plant a money tree in your grave. Like, I don't care. But anyway, so that was the whole situation at hand. But ultimately, the reason that I posted that on Twitter, and the reason that, I was not expecting it to get to the 7 million view mark or whatever, especially for Twitter. But the reason I did was because I know tens of actors around me that I could name right now that if I told them they could make $100,000 on a singular job, their eyes would pop out of their heads.
Right.
And I know actors that are to the point of, I may have to go move home to Florida or move back to Virginia or go back overseas because I can't get a work visa because I can't book enough jobs. That would take this in a heartbeat. And as I said in the thread, it's the lottery mentality. I understand why, because when you are, I lived in my car for 8 months and lived in a studio apartment with another guy in a fucking 8x8 room for 6 months. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be on that cliff of desperation. I get it. But to assert a value of $100,000 on the future, not only of the industry, but the future of your own fucking work. That is not something that you can die on. That's not something that you can't retire on $100,000.
Yeah. It's if they were little bit for a little while, sure, makes a difference for a lot of people. I mean, especially living in LA, it's not going to go very far. You're not going to buy a house with that or anything, or pay your mortgage. You can't make a down payment with $100,000 in LA. And the company that signed you, your agency, they knew that too. That's why they had the you're a young guy. Oh, this is a poor decision. You're smart. You shouldn't be doing this. But like I said, this is a savings for them. This is just a small investment for not just the agency, but for the company that wanted to do this project with them. Like, that was nothing for them, and they are very aware of it.
Yeah. AI itself is $1 billion fucking industry. This is pennies. This is pennies in the bank for them, and they're asking people to sell their souls, sell their likeness, sell their voice, sell who they are. I mean, like, it would either way. Retiring on $100,000 is not something that can happen in LA, and so I digress. But like I said, the messaging behind it was not this moral high ground. It wasn't this scathing review of the people who would take those kinds of jobs. It was more so just messaging of, hey, these are more predatory than you think.
Right.
These are worse than you think. Because these AI companies, I'll reference Fiverr, for instance, right? Fiverr was bought by an AI company, and I think it was called Lovo. And there's a lawsuit that's ongoing with 2 voice actors who were a part of Fiverr prior to the acquisition of it by Lovo, of the company. And they began feeding the voices, because when you use Fiverr, you upload the audio. If you're a voice actor, you upload the audio to Fiverr and it's saved in their personal servers. They began feeding those recordings into an AI model that they were developing.
Really?
Without the permission of the clients. Yeah. But because when you sign up for Fiverr, it is essentially saying, when you sell an audio or you sell a product to another person, Fiverr is essentially buying it and then selling it to the person that is purchasing it from you. It's, even though there's not like a, here Fiverr, take this from me, Fiverr goes, here bud, take this. It is an internal interaction. So because they legally own the things that were put on the software or that were put on the website, they were able to freely do that. But there were some minor stipulations, because they also include clauses of like, you can sell rights. Like if I used Fiverr and somebody edited a video of mine, they could relinquish their rights. They could say, I agree that any earnings you make from this video will not be mine. Mm-hmm. So that's where it kind of created a legal dilemma, because it's, how can you give the rights over to the purchaser if you are retaining rights from the purchasee? So that's where the lawsuit is currently happening. But ultimately, it goes back to, it is more predatory than you think. There's no limitation to what they can do with your voice the second you sign that contract.
It did strike me as kind of a bellwether of where AI is in labor right now, because after the WGA SAG-AFTRA strikes, you mentioned rightly that like that was a big part of their labor efforts, was to make sure that these contracts in the future were not going to lock them into a situation that you would have been in. And I have friends in LA who are like camera operators. They're in like back-end production. They're on crew, and they're also having the dilemma that you mentioned, where they're thinking about having to like move back home because there's no work. That is partly because of other anti-labor practices within the industry, but because of AI, it's happening anyway. And when I saw your tweet, it struck me as it is definitely still a prominent issue. This has not gone away, and that this is getting so much traction shows that there are people who either didn't realize how bad it was, or also want to get this message out because it's happening to them. It was
a reminder for me, because the turnover on issues, I guess you could say, in the general ecosphere of, the sphere of communication, the turnover is so high. So it's very easy for, let's say, right-wing dickheads and AI developers to get out of the forefront for a minute. Mm-hmm. It's the Israel tactic, where they specifically bombed Palestinians when something big was happening in the United States. It was so they could avoid having full view. And AI companies did the same thing, where they waited until people sat back and went,
okay, maybe it's not that bad. California just passed a law in September establishing that, they have to get proper consent and proper compensation and get a contract. That's good.
And then they're like,
well, actually, we're just going to throw so much money at this fucking 18-year-old with a good voice that they can't say no.
Right.
So they're not safer. They just might get a little bit more change in their pocket, but it's still fucking change.
How do you see like solutions, not just from, someone who's in the industry, but for some of the people who are reacting to your Palestine comment, and someone earlier was like, oh my God, it's Nick Meyers. For those of you in chat who don't know, Nick is a community member. Nick hangs out and lurks in the morning sometimes. How do you see a solution, not just from someone who's in the industry, but from someone with a perspective that more aligns with a community like this?
Solutions for the use of AI in this media, or the solutions for the average? What do you?
Well, I mean,
if you don't mind me asking.
I think you can only really speak to like your industry, as a professional. But I mean, as far as like, here are some clear like misuses. They're doing workarounds. If there was something that you feel like may have been either left at the table or weren't able to get the negotiations, like what would they be?
I have the pipe dream that all art is created by people. And that, of course, is a sentiment that is carried by a number of not only creatives, but the average individual. Because it's when someone's watching something and they find out it isn't real, it isn't human made, it poisons the experience. If I found out that Dune 2 or if I found out Oppenheimer was made entirely by AI, it'd become a little less funny. It'd become a little less good. You know, just a lot less for me, but for some people, even just a little less. So to me, the solution they're pushing right now is establishing rules for it to occur. So yes, you can buy someone's likeness forever. EA Sports can buy your face, your body to throw into anything they make as a fan, as long as you get a lot of money. I personally don't think there is a value to assign to your likeness. However, if I were to abandon the idea of the eradication of generative AI, then it is not only proper compensation, it is consistent compensation.
Right.
So for commercial work, they've moved towards, for like non-union commercials, they'll do a buyout. You do a Target. I did a fucking Target commercial for Christmas a few years back, and they paid me $3,000 and sent me on my way. And no matter how many times that commercial aired, I didn't make any money. But the typical way is residuals. It is you make your money every month, every 6 months, every year. You get a check that shows, hey, your commercial was aired 400 times on these channel, or this many times, here's your money. If an AI model is going to take your likeness and turn around and train this software, then the people who use their likeness, who sell their likeness, deserve to make money every single time that company makes money.
Right.
Every single time. So ultimately, it seems as though Gavin Newsom, unfortunately, Fran Fine is not the best speaker for actors as the head of SAG right now. But the solution they're going for is a consistent, constant compensation for the likeness. I can understand if that's the solution for some people, but personally, I'm on the fuck generative AI, no generative AI being used in art.
I know some people see AI as kind of an inevitability, and like all emerging technologies or things that displace labor, its early adoptions do exactly that. They displace labor, it causes chaos in the market, and eventually may course correct itself. But I think that might have been true for the early, late 1800s, early 1900s, but as time has gone on, these have only solidified and calcified those industries into being less and less labor friendly. I know that there are some ways that you can do, like, AI isn't the appropriate term. We had a conversation with a techie about this last week, but I am kind of on the same page as you. I don't see any real reason why AI would ever be a permanent fixture of the entertainment industry.
I agree. So the reference I've been using in my little one-off conversations in the last couple of days, it's the printing press. It's the
cotton gin
assembly. The assembly line. So as we've progressed towards automation in the labor force, the average worker is grabbed by the ears by a politician, by a manager, by a CEO, and they say, automation is good for you because you'll have to work less. And they've been saying that since the 1800s. But as we've seen time and time again with every industrial age and every grand development of technology, the average person does not benefit from that technology. Their jobs might become easier, or those jobs might be less necessary, but they still have to make a fucking living. People are still working 40-hour work weeks, 9 to 5s, 5 days a week, 12-hour days, 70 or 80-hour work weeks. That hasn't changed. And the same is going to happen with AI, where they're going to promise you, hey, You're going to make 100K, but that means you don't have to do any voice acting anymore. That doesn't solve our problem, which is actionable ways to make a fucking living, retire, have healthcare, be healthy, be happy, be safe. It doesn't solve those problems. So to the people that have said on the post to me personally that AI is the future and AI is inevitable, just because something is inevitable does not mean that the average individual like myself should push the dial, should speed up the process.
Right.
That's my opinion. So if I knew an asteroid was heading for the Earth and somebody said, hey man, can you throw on a jetpack, fly behind the asteroid and push it a little faster? It's going to hit us anyway. That's essentially the same thing. Why would I speed up my own demise?
Yeah, there's an accelerationist aspect of it where they want it to happen more.
Yeah, they want it to happen more. They want it to happen faster. So why the fuck would I fall in line for AI just because it's an inevitability? I think it's the conversation about conservative media, right? The reason there are no good conservative movies is because they're trying to tell you something as opposed to ask you something. And it's very similar. It's what is the point of me being a part of this process? What is the point of me furthering this process when art is going to stop being art? You know, why would I eradicate an entire division of the workforce, an entire job market, $400,000? And I know I personally wouldn't be doing it. It would be Topaz Labs' fault and the agents that push that shit. But I refuse to stand on that. I refuse to allow that to happen in front of me, personally. Yeah. But yeah, the internet. Yeah, I mean, as somebody said in the chat, it's like I said, the technological advances. The internet was the same as the assembly line, the cotton gin, the printing press. You know, everyone's promised these grandiose payoffs, and they're faced with bullshit. They're faced with less pay. Yeah.
Why not see AI as a means to educate? Well, I think that people's desire for AI to be successful and be more prominent is misplaced, but there is at its core a desire for menial labor to be eliminated. The bullshit jobs that people do are going to be replaced by AI, and automation was also proposed as that. Oh, you won't have to work the assembly line anymore. Well, there still are. I had this conversation when I was working in a call center before I went full-time on Twitch. And I told my coworkers, like, find another job because this is going to be replaced by, generative AI voice models in like 5 to 7 years. Not all of you will be gone, but there will still be a handful of you when the AI can't understand deep South accents because it hasn't been trained on it. But most of you will be gone. And I think that is part of it. But for things like art, entertainment, education, the pursuit of science, that is a strictly, uniquely human endeavor. These are things that cannot be done by AI and should never be allowed to happen in AI.
I agree. I agree with you completely. As I said, the soul of these endeavors, the soul of these markets is the human experience. You cannot, even in the development of AI, even in these models that are developed for generative AI purposes, the only way for them to continue, to grow, to develop, to become better, is more human experiences. So if AI took over the entirety of the entertainment industry, they would start to hone in on the same stories. They would start pulling information from other AI stories. They would become homogenized. They would become the same. And the only way to fix those models, because they're not artificial intelligence, they're machine learning software, would be more human experiences, would be more human art.
Yeah.
That is the only possible way for them to develop. So there's no growth pattern. There's no growth model for AI.
Which is something we're already seeing too. Like the incentive structures in Hollywood have been to produce like things that hit the right taste clusters, as Stephen Barry said. You hit the taste clusters, you're doing the exact same thing. We did a Squid Game, that was successful. That was a unique pursuit of art and asking a question, as you said. and then there were 1,000 reproductions of it. Mr. Beast did his own version of it and completely missed the entire point because he was like Hollywood, just going for cash grabs and clickbait. So yeah, I mean, like the incentive structures are already laid in place because of the erosion of, you know, the artist in the pursuit of art, because it's not artists that are, you know, directing what kind of output is in there. It's corporate executives. So yeah, like 100%, you're right.
Yeah. It's just some tech guy. It's the Gulf of America bullshit where some Silicon Valley dickhead was like, I'm making an executive decision here.
Yeah, it's the Sam Altmans of Hollywood.
Yes, yes, it is. But either way, yeah, that was the general experience I faced with my agency, and the general message that I've been pushing, and I will continue to, is it's not a matter of moral superiority, nor is it a gun to your head. What would you do for $100,000? It's establishing, as Scott, the lawyer with NVA or Nava said, the 3 C's. It is consent, compensation, and control. So it's the ability to properly consent front to back when it comes to the creation of art, the use of AI, proper compensation. You're paid over time, you are paid your residuals and your royalties, and control. That it is a controlled methodology and a controlled software that is being used. It's not a publicized software like ChatGPT, where I'm giving my voice to ChatGPT and then some random person can go, I need Nick Meyer to say a slur, and then they can have me do it. You know?
Yeah.
Like it's the character AI bullshit that I, because of being on TikTok and because being resident sexy voice guy, they put me on character AI. Some people fed my voice into the fucking machine already.
Talk girlies probably love you.
Hang me out to dry, man. Hang me out to dry. And so I'll hear myself say something. Very rarely will people use it because I'm very staunchly against it. So the same people that want to hear me call them a good girl, they could just pay for me to do it anyway. They don't. So I'll go on and I'll hear myself say some crazy shit. I'm like, you guys understand? Like I would stone you. I would stone you if I would stone the developer of this company as like, you're weird. I would stone you. Hate to say it. Like,
no, valid.
Anyway,
valid. So what's next for Nick Meyers, voice actor? Where do you go from here?
Yeah, now that I've lost representation, ironically, this cause and effect fiasco, I wasn't expecting this, but a number of voice acting agencies have hit me up, actually, and ones that are far larger than the one that I was with.
That's fantastic.
As I said, it's incredibly surprising to me, as well as validating. It's wind in my sails for the push against generative AI in art. I've had many a times online where I will, quote, stand up for what I think is right, where a creator will be weird and I'll help them get called out, or somebody will be bad, like something will be bad and I'll make a comment. I'll talk about, topics that are normally circumvented by the average TikToker. And at times, I mean, yes, I still stood for what was right in my eyes, and I'm trying to stand on the right side of the future, but it does end up harming me in some way or another, or negatively affecting my income, or negatively affecting my social interaction or my relationships. So it is a pleasant surprise that this isn't blowing up in my face and hurting me, because I've gotten used to that to a degree. And I'm sure you can understand, as somebody whose entire content model is based on talking about these things, there will be times that you get into fights with the wrong people, and it will ultimately be a good, but still cause you some sort of stress, turmoil, and pain in the future.
Sure.
So it's nice to know that as I'm sitting here and as this is happening, I don't have the agent knocking on my door and writing hatchet pieces on me. It's nice that instead I'm getting emails from very, very kind, very, very lovely individuals saying, hey, this fucking sucks. We hate that this happened to you. We went to your website, listened to your voice acting reels, and you're too good for this, so come to us.
This is fantastic. I appreciate you kind of enlightening us a little bit on the entertainment industry, and this kind of unique segment of it in the voice acting world. I know I started a few minutes later than we had talked about. If you still have time, if you're not too busy with all those big business deals, then
Man, fuck you.
yeah, all right. I had offered you to do something that I have been wanting to do with other voice actors, but never was able to do. I sent you that video of Seth Green and Rob Paulson. I made the mistake this morning of telling chat the plan and fielding chat for suggestions of two-partner scenes or a brief back and forth. Someone suggested the Marriage Story fight scene, but it's like 8 minutes long, and I would have to just find like the segment of the script where it gets to the every fucking day I hope you wake up dead.
Every day I wake up. That's so fucking funny. I mean, we could. I find that shit hilarious.
Okay.
I also, we can shorten it. We can stop whenever we run out of steam. I don't mind at all.
The thought of having sex with you makes me want to peel my skin off.
You'll never be happy in LA or anywhere. You'll think you found some better, opposite guy than me. In a few years, you'll rebel against him because you need to have your voice. But you don't want a voice. You just want to fucking complain about not having a voice.
Brilliant. What a gem. What an actual gem. All right, let's refocus, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed that segment. If you would like to go and show some support to Nick, here's the tweet that, started all of this. You can go and check out Nick's other work posted on his Twitter.